Good evening and welcome to Africa News Network First Fast Live. My name is Cindy Mabi and this is the Monday edition of ANN7 Prime. Good to have you. Tiger Brand says it takes the safety of its customers seriously, but it will not apologize for the listeriosis outbreak until further notice. Tiger Brand CEO Lawrence McDougall says the company's safety measures meet global standards. McDougall says that they went beyond the call of duty in recalling cold meat products from the shelves, but the company will not take responsibility for the 180 deaths until there is conclusive proof. The company urged people who have fallen sick due to consuming its products to come forward with the necessary medical records. It's not yet confirmed if authorities will hold guilty companies accountable.
I just want to give you that assurance. We have acted way ahead of any expectations of the DOH and will commit to you that we will continue to do so to protect the health and safety of our consumers as we move forward with the detection and eradication of listeria in South Africa. Any loss of life is tragic. We are all very concerned about the outbreak of listeriosis in our country, and as CEO of Tiger Brands, it is devastating that our products have been linked to this outbreak. The public concern, anger in some cases, and uncertainty around this disease is completely understandable. And therefore, we want to reassure you, the public, that we are doing everything we can. We are leaving no stone unturned, and we are working tirelessly to ensure that we get to the bottom of the cause and detection of this outbreak. I cannot guess as to what the link might be. All I can confirm is at the moment there is no link. So I can't guess what those links might be in the future. So there are no links to our products directly to the deaths of those individuals. As to the quality regime, I confirm again, we've shared our quality testing and we will say that the European standard. So, and I think you need to understand that listeria is present in the environment in most places in South Africa. And I think that's been confirmed by many press reports, some of which you have released as well, to inform consumers and educate them as to listeria in the environment.
The National Department of Health has never accused any single company for being directly responsible for the listeriosis. We all we're saying is that we at least we have managed to trace the source of the outbreak. We have noted what they've said. We do not agree with what they have said, and there are numerous documented evidence that we have tried actually to ask the industry to up their standards.
Meanwhile, retailers are clearing their shelves of Enterprise food products. Food Lovers Market is the latest retailer to remove the suspected products. Consumers have also begun returning cold meats for refunds, and the recall of Enterprise Foods products, which is a subsidiary of Tiger Brands, was initiated after confirmation that its Polokwane plant was the source of the outbreak. More than 16 environmental samples from the Enterprise Polokwane factory tested positive for listeriosis. Tiger Brands says it has suspended operations at both Enterprise manufacturing facilities in Polokwane and Germiston.
I was a customer for Enterprise. I bought that hampers. Now I found out the hampers is a problem now. I feel very bad because of now I'm not working. I'm selling these hampers. I wish for Enterprise they must make something, man. They must fast before end of the year or before June. Yeah, they must solve their problem.
2018 Enterprise that are 615. So on a je ki di khutlisitse ke tlo batla refund ya ka ene bana ba ka ba tse ding ba di jile ka Saturday. Ona je ba re ken re tlo nka tšhelete ba nkile ba re file di reference so ba re bitsa no.
And how does this one make you feel?
It makes me feel bad.
Yeah.
Ke nna te bora mtlhale ke dula Delville ke rekile dilo ka di 4 yo ka di 1 ka Thursday monna ka di ja ka Thursday and Friday a thoma o kula ya ke shoka yona ka re o lalwala iba sa lwala I right o thoma o ja hamper ya Enterprise a thoma o kula because of ba kula since una 3 days ka mo ka kula ba re ba tlo re fa no ba re teretse ditšhelete tsa rena ba re fa tsona back mara problem ko re banna ba rena ba kula batho ba bangwe ba hlokofetse ke problem.
Mina ngithi ayikho lento leyo ukuthi singasadla amapholoni amaVienna ezini yesterday mina ngidlila ipholoni ne ngadla neVienna ezini ngithenga ikota vele ngadla ikota so nje namanje ngisaphila so angibelieve le yamakota ukuthi singasadla amapholoni whatever.
And here are some of the common symptoms of listeriosis. Infected people may suffer from fever, muscle aches and diarrhea, headache, stiff neck and confusion if it spreads to the nervous system. Infected pregnant women may also experience a mild flu-like illness, and general symptoms may show up 2 to 30 days after the initial exposure. And Gauteng Education spokesperson Steve Mabona says they are monitoring tuck shops in schools to tackle the listeriosis outbreak.
I can confirm that our nutrition food does not contain the identified foods that or food products that are high risk. But what we are doing, we are interacting with the schools, through the principals to say principals must monitor the tuck shops, because we have tuck shops in our schools, and we have vendors that are outside our premises. So we just want them to monitor very closely that such foods are not sold to children, because children will always, want a delicacy that they are used to or they are fond to, and they will be not alarmed, to say what is the issue now. So we are saying they just need to be cautious and make sure that the children are not, exposed to such foods until we have, a green light from the Department of Health on how we're moving forward when coming to such foods.
It can't be that every time in this country we wait for people to die in their hundreds before we really take things seriously and start to escalate our information campaign. We think the Department of Health really needs to take full responsibility, including, of course, the identified institutions and the overall government structures that should have been at the forefront of really dealing with this outbreak. In this country, if we are going to have health institutions that first allow people to die before we can actually take seriously, and for a country with a very high disease burden, their mistakes have got deadly consequences, which is why we want all of the companies responsible to be held accountable. But then the question also arises as to where were the health inspectors or the people responsible who should have been at the forefront of actually dealing with this in a decisive manner from early on.
And you're welcome to give us a call 011-542-1046 or 011-542-1046. On the line, we're joined by Tanya Alberts, a nutritionist and dietitian. We have Gadishi Masemola from the Food Allied Workers Union, their General Secretary, and Patricia Kopane is the DA Shadow Minister of Health. We'll start with you, Ma'am Kopane, and thanks so much for joining us. What does this say about the health and safety of food manufacturing in the country, considering that this outbreak has been with us for quite a while?
Thank you for the opportunity. If you remember, 2 weeks ago, the World Health Organization has said that the South Africa listeria outbreak, it is believed to be the largest ever outbreak of the bacteria disease listeriosis. And it is clear that it is a concern to all the South African people, because currently we talk about 180 lives that people has lost, and it's so serious. It's unfortunate that the update came very late, because if I remember, on the 7th of February, I wrote a letter to the minister to request him to come up with the update, because we are also feeling impatient because people were dying. But what we also need to understand, the crisis, it is not just the health sector that is negatively affected, but it's far-reaching as the food, the entire food industry. The agriculture is also affected. But what we're saying as the Democratic Alliance, we are really trying to welcome the announcement yesterday by the minister. We also want to welcome the subsequent move that has been done by the National Consumer Commission to ensure that all companies that are involved with safety recall, so that they can recall their product in different shops, and also that they must be stopped must be suspended from exporting their goods anywhere else. And I'm also appealing to the industry, especially many companies that they feel that no, per se they are not affected, but they need to cooperate to recall all those processed food on the shelves. And secondly, our worry is the minister currently must more investigate more this company.
Yes,
and what is important,
exactly on that point, on the accountability of the manufacturers and the subsidiary of Tiger Brands. What do you make of the response of the CEO saying that they disassociate themselves with any deaths that have been suffered unless proven otherwise?
I think what is important, they need to understand that here we talk about human life. There might be concern about the money, the profit and everything. Human life is so expensive, we cannot replace that. He can open that company if it can be closed anytime, but we cannot replace the life of 180 people. That's what is important. Now, what is important is for the minister to ensure that they investigate thoroughly, and they must come with strict measures in places for the food industry to cap the spread, because if we're not going to make sure that all the stuff is being recalled and we minimize the spread of it, and then my worrying factor, or the DA worrying factor, if you remember, the health inspectors, they used to reside within the Department of Health, but they are now within is a competence of the municipality. And as you know, many municipalities, they can't even render the service delivery to our people. Now the issue is, do they have capacity to inspect all this food industry in our country? Because that is worrying. And the other thing that is also important, what the Democratic Alliance requested the minister last week when he came to do the briefing regarding the listeriosis to our committee, we clearly indicated that this need is a national crisis. It needs a national campaign, because currently, as I'm talking with you, I don't believe many South African people, they understand how to handle this, even how to dispose already food that they have. So it's a national campaign that the minister must drive from nationally, all the province, community radio stations, even different municipalities.
We do have other panelists, and we appreciate your time. Thanks indeed. That's Patricia Kopane, DA Shadow Minister of Health, on the phone line. We have a caller, Tsidiso, and we thank you for your patience. What's your comment or question?
Yeah, I'm Tsidiso Poshali Benyane. I'm calling from Tutuza. I just want to confirm this, because here they are talking about Enterprise and the Rainbow, those two products. What about us who are buying from Escort at Heidelberg? Because I bought my perishable a week ago at Escort at Heidelberg. Is there anything that they can say about Escort, or that thing is about, it's Tsibiso, ne? Tsibiso. That thing is about Enterprise or Rainbow? I want to confirm that. All
right, thank you so much, Tsidiso, for your call. Rainbow Chicken and Enterprise, but there's also concerns, Re Masemola, that there may be other products. I mean, in terms of consumer awareness, over and above reading the content list on a packaging, what more can you do to ensure that you're not affected by contaminated goods?
Yeah, well, as a union, we'll obviously encourage that consumer awareness be increased. But as a union, on these specific cases, we call on the companies to work together with the health authorities, because the issue here is an issue that affects our people. But it also affects the work. Maybe some of these workers have been exposed to the health risk, those who are working in these operations, and it is very important that an expedited process of investigations is concluded.
And in the food, the value chain in itself and working conditions, the cleanliness, safety and health standards, would you say generally that food manufacturers are above board in how they operate in this particular space?
Well, generally the standards that are held in South African agro-processing and food manufacturing are relatively high. and are in fact comparing well with international standards. But we don't want lapses to happen, and that's why we would hold management to account for the lapses that are happening. Whether it's the systems, whether it's the processes, they must always keep up to the high standards.
Okay, Tanya Alberts, a nutritionist and dietitian, joins us on the line. Good evening to you, and thanks so much for joining us. And of course, many parents would be concerned. This would typically be the content of lunch boxes, etc., when it comes to cold meats because of its convenience or that there's brand loyalty. What is your reaction as a dietitian to this current outbreak and the reaction to it?
Thank you very much. I think it's going to be a learning curve for all of us. There fortunately are a lot of other options that people can choose for lunch boxes, and it will actually force them to look at those other options like vegetables, fruits, dried fruits, whole wheat crackers, all those type of things.
So your recommendation at this point, we had a caller wanting to know that is it only Rainbow Chicken or is it Enterprise only that is affected, or should they be concerned about other similar products?
At the moment,
Tanya? Okay, we'll try and get Tanya back. We lost her on the line there. Siyabonga, good evening to you and thanks for calling. What's your comment or question?
Yes, I've got two questions here. The first question, I think, it's about the brand itself. Is it every brand or is it just Enterprise? And then my second question is, I heard that heat can destroy the bacteria. So is it safe for us to consume the product and then we can maybe deep fry the product, or is it totally not safe? So I just want to know on that point.
All right. Siyabonga kakhulu, siyabonga in Kagiso. Perhaps, Re Masemola, you can answer that in the sense that is it safe if it's cooked, or is it generally problematic now that this outbreak has come to the fore?
Well, I'm not an expert there, but I've heard one of the experts speaking, saying that the more you cook, cooked products are better because they kill the bacteria. But to eat them as they are, it's exposing yourself to a risk. So cooking can actually be helpful.
All right, Tanya, before we lost you on the line there, you were saying that it's perhaps very pragmatic for people to look at other alternatives, food sources, maybe not a vegan diet necessarily, but what do we do if we've been so dependent and we've become so loyal to these type of cold meats?
as mentioned before, you can look at cooked food. So you can look at grilled chickens, you can look at grilled beef. There's no problem in putting those in lunchboxes and putting those on sandwiches.
But how safe is the food? One of the callers saying that if it is cooked, do you have the surety that the bacteria would have then been destroyed in the process? Or are you saying that to just generally stay away from cold meats until we know a little bit more about the situation?
It's better to stay away from the cold meats until we know better, until we have more information on it. But if they want to look at alternatives protein-wise, they can look at nuts, they can look at biltong, they can look at peanut butters. So there are a lot of more options to use when it comes to protein. Legumes and beans, those are also options that can be used as alternatives. All
right, Tanya Alberts, a nutritionist and dietitian, thank you so much for your time. And we also have Khomotso on the line. Good evening to you and thanks for joining us.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, Khomotso. What's on your mind regarding this listeriosis outbreak and concern and outrage amongst community members around food safety and security?
I just wanted to ask a question. I bought an Escort hamper at Vodiport. Are we safe with Escort? Because now I'm panicking. I've got Escort hamper at home.
Yes, and I suppose until the environmental tests are done, we wouldn't know for sure. But from the response from Tiger Brands, if you're still on the line, Khomotso, is that it's only enterprise food products, cold meats, processed meats, and also your rainbow chicken. You can correct me, Mr. Masemola,
yeah,
if there are any additional ones that you, as a worker that deals with food processing might want to alert our viewers on?
Yeah, I know that the distinction between Escort and Enterprise as brand names may be difficult for many consumers, but I'm told that at the moment Escort, it's not red flagged. It's only Enterprise products that are red flagged. The Rainbow products are also undergoing investigations.
So the service providers or the suppliers, as we heard Mekhomodzo being you would call her an agent, I suppose, that would procure from an Escort or an Enterprise and resell at a certain markup. What advice do you have for them and also the loss of income that they're now suffering because of this outbreak?
Yeah, so there will be a multiplier effect on the negative impact that this outbreak has. So workers at Enterprise and at Rainbow have their jobs at risk. So are the small players in the value chain, including the mama you are talking about. So lots of people, including the retailers or rather small fast food outlets in the townships and villages that are selling kotas and other bunny chows, they are going to be affected by this. Yeah.
But how do you mitigate that risk, though, in the absence of having any clarity, especially on other products, because consumers may not just be willing to accept at face value that indeed what you are selling is approved or is safe to consume?
And that's a very important question and difficult to answer. I guess the health authorities will also clarify as to the alternatives. But if people still want, a polony, they may have little choice. Perhaps Escort and few others are available, and that's a difficult one.
Let's take other callers. Rombi, good evening to you. Thanks for calling. Nolwazi, welcome to you next. How are you, Rombi?
I'm fine, thanks. And how are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for asking. What's your question or comment?
Oh, my question is, I understand about this rainbow polony because even my child was sick last week. The whole week was sick, having those symptoms, so I didn't understand it. Now I'm worried about the chicken also. Is it also affected? Rainbow chicken. Yeah,
all right, Rambi, just in terms of the medical expenses, in the press statement, Tiger Brands did say that those can be engaged with if you bring proof that indeed their product had led to the illness or discomfort that you're suffering. So we'll get Masemola to answer that. Let's take another caller. Nolwazi, good evening to you.
Hello.
Hi. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good.
Can I ask a question? How can we prevent this kind of disease?
How do you prevent it?
Yes.
All right, thanks so much, Nolwazi. You were saying that we've got the highest standards, or at least we meet a global master when it comes to food processing. Was it preventable? Or where were the authorities? Could they have acted more speedily to curb the outbreak?
Yeah, well, because there's an over-reliance on not self-policing, but on the implementation of the standards by the operators, by the manufacturers and processors. We are happy that the health authorities were able to trace and track where the source and the origin of the problem is. It is for Tiger Brands to cooperate with the health authorities, and it is in fact, this is a lesson to all the manufacturers of food in this country, that they must up their game. They must not allow lapses in their systems.
Who would you say should be held liable, or are you saying that it is almost collective responsibility?
Well, as a trade unionist, I wouldn't want workers to be blamed or to be faulted for this crisis. It is good that the CEO of Tiger Group came out, spoke, even if he doesn't believe that the 180 deaths were caused by the product directly, but it is up to him to give the information to the health authorities.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Rekatishi Masemola from the Food Allied Workers Union as the General Secretary. We also had Tanya Alberts, a nutritionist and dietitian. And on the phone line, we had Ma'am Patricia Kupane, DA Shadow Minister of Health. And you at home, thanks for taking the trouble to call in. We'll give you updates on the story as it develops. For now, though, we take a quick break. I will be back with the latest news just after this.